Hi, Rick here from Man of Models, DJI dealer from the UK and RC specialist for over 40 years. In this video I'm going to show you how to get your new Phantom 4 from the box to the flying field. Now, you know I'm not one for doing unboxing videos, as I'm a firm believer if you can't get it out of the box then drones are not really for you. But as the box is actually an integral part of the package, I'm going to actually show you the craft inside the box, because it's actually been very well thought out by DJI to include this as the base part of the package of the Phantom 4. Now, all P4s will come supplied in this box. This is what's inside of the cardboard outer. Now, although they will do a optional backpack, which certainly for if you're traveling about would be the way to go, but considering this is instead of the usual sort of egg carton type box, this is actually a really good addition. It's got a proper catch on the front, so you just twist that and then you can just open up and the Phantom 4's inside. And as you can see, very compact, very well thought out, and you've got everything that you need to fly in this box, and it can carry everything you need to fly. Along with the additional, you've got two extra spaces here and here for extra batteries to go into. So here we have absolutely everything that you get in the box. You've got, of course, you've got your craft, you've got the controller. If you're familiar with the Phantom 3s, pretty much the same controller. You have your charger, which will have adapters on it for charging the main battery and the controller. The AC adapter lead. Now, my version is not a UK version, so in the UK you'll actually get a proper UK version. You'll get a whole sort of pack of quick start guides, as well as sort of do's and don'ts. Basically, DJI obviously taking the sort of proactive level about promoting drone safety, which is a good idea. You get a full flying set of props, you get a full backup set of props, and you'll get various USB adapter leads there as well. But the first thing we're going to have to do, of course, before we do anything, is we're going to have to charge the battery. Okay, so first things first, we're going to charge up the battery and the controller. So the first thing you need to do is obviously dig out your AC adapter. Now, it comes with a protective film on it, so first thing to do is actually take the film off of it. And you've got two connections. You've got one for the battery and one for the controller, and then you'll see in the back of the battery you have a connector. Now, the weird thing is normally connectors like this have keyed connections. This does not, because it doesn't actually matter what way you plug it in. So you can either plug it in, as you can see, that way, or you can actually plug it in that way, and then when you turn it around, you'll now see the lights on there scrolling, and they'll basically just keep scrolling up until it's fully charged, when all the lights will go out. Now, you have a similar thing for the controller. If I just pull that up like that, you'll have a socket on the side there, and that just simply plugs into there, and then you'll see the scrolling lights on the front of the controller. Now, you're going to ask, is it okay for me to charge the controller and the main battery at the same time? Now, it's a common question because it used to come up on the Inspire and the Phantom 3 as well. The way I see it is DJI say don't charge them both at the same time, otherwise the AC adapter can get quite hot. But the way I tend to do it is, if the controller doesn't really need a full charge, it's just needing topped up, then actually plugging it in at the same time, I don't have any problems with the power supply getting hot, as the majority of the charge is going to be going into the battery, because the charger only puts out a fixed amount of power, and when you've got both plugged in, it will actually just spread it between the two. Now, charge times are, just charging the main battery will take you 1 hour and 20 minutes, and the controller will take 3 hours and 40 minutes. Although do remember, obviously, where your main battery will only last, say, just under 30 minutes in the aircraft, your controller would last all day charged up, so you can just take that into consideration. Now, just to point out as well, when it's actually fully charged, again for the controller, the lights will just simply go out. Okay, now that we've got the controller and the battery charged up, we're going to get ready to clip on the device and get the craft activated for the first time. So we're going to need your device, so it can either be an Apple or Android device, obviously your craft, your battery and your controller. So first things first, we're going to put the battery into the craft. Now, the battery is keyed, it will only go in one way, so if you try to get it in the wrong way around, it's just not going to go in the whole way. So that just simply clips in, push it in till you hear the click, give it a little tug, make sure it's in, and then that part's ready to go. Then the next part we need to do is clip the device onto the controller. So we just bring the controller into the shot. Now when you get them out of the box, there's actually a protective film that will be clipped in like that, and the protective film will run around here. Just to expand the device holder, you just push that button in and that slides out. But if that protective film is around it, it won't expand. So just remember to pull that back, and then our tablet will clip into there. So this will fold. Well, if you're using tablets, it will just clip in as normal. If you're using a smartphone, you just pull these clips down here, and then a smartphone will be able to fit in there as well. But we're going tablet. Now, to connect the device to your controller, you're going to need a device cable. Now, if you're running Apple, you just use the cable that you actually get with your Apple phone or tablet that charges it up. The Craft itself will come with Android, so if you use an Android, you've got a cable already supplied. But what we simply do is, got your charging connection in the side of your tablet, so we just plug that in there, and then that plugs into, on the bottom here, you've got USB socket, and that just plugs into here. And then that's that, and then we're ready to power this on for the first time. Now you might have noticed I've taken the props off the Craft. If you're ever basically not going to fly, so if you're working your model indoors, etc., always have the props off. So for any reason the motors were to start, you're not going to hurt yourself with the props, so always have them off. At the time that it takes to take off, always have them off. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you need to go to the App Store and download the app. Now the app that you're looking for is the DJI Go app. You can either scan the QR code on the box or just go to the App Store and download it. Of course, if you're on Android, again, you can scan the box or you can go to the Play Store to download it. And then once loaded, you can boot up the app. Now, before we start, it is very important that you take the gimbal lock off the Craft. This holds the gimbal in place when in transit, but it's very important that's removed before flight. So we'll just take that off, like that, place that aside, and then the Craft is ready. Now you'll notice I've taken the propellers off the Craft. If you're ever powering on your model indoors just for maintenance or firmware updates, always remember to take the props off just in case the motors are to start. But to fire it all up, we simply turn the controller on first. So you push it once and then push it and hold it, and then you'll see the lights appear along the bottom scrolling up to say it's ready. And the same with the Craft. So you've got the button here, so you push it once and then within 2 seconds push it again, you'll see the lights scroll up, you'll hear the fans inside the model start up, makes a little activation beep, and the little gimbal will do a little sort of self-calibration thing as well. It'll move all around just to get itself level. And then you're here, you will get the welcome screen, but it will now have the Phantom 4 on the screen, and you can just press camera. Now, when you've got a brand new Craft, the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to activate it. Okay, so first things first, just press the next, and it will basically ask you for a name of your aircraft. Now, I recommend that you literally just call it something like Phantom 4, because this name can't be changed later on. If you ever do go to sell your Craft, then, well, let's face it, if you've called it like Mildred or something like that, it's going to just seem a little bit weird. So I always tend to just stick with what it is. So we'll go Phantom 4. Nice and simple. So continue. Basically, it's going to ask you what control mode you want it in. What that means is it's whether the throttle, so up and down, is going to be, say, on the left stick or the right stick. Now, 99% of places in the UK, we fly mode 2, which is defaulted. So I just leave it at that. Saves complicating things. Next, what we've got is the customization of the buttons on the back. So on the back of the controller, you've got 2 buttons here. I don't know if you can see these, 1 and 2, and they can be set up to do various things. So I just now move that. So it's basically asking what you want. So what I would do is I would just leave them as they are. You can change these later on, so it's not a big deal. If you don't know what they are, just press continue. Just asking things like, do you want to go metric or imperial? So for example, I tend to always work in metric for distances, so we'll leave that as is. Now video output, again, if you're in the States, NTSC. If you're in the UK, PAL. to the next one. Now, if you're brand new to drones, it's worth leaving it in beginner's mode. And what that does is it greatly reduces the range and height that you can fly to, so you don't get away from yourself. Of course, if you already have drones and you're not a beginner, then it's probably worth actually just turning that off. Again, if you have it on, you can turn it off later on, but I'm going to take that off as I have flown drones before. Next one is, it'll just ask you to confirm your account. Now, if you haven't already got a DJI account, you have to create one, which you can either do on the DJI website or you can do it via the app. Now, as I already have an account and I'm already logged in, at this part, I'll have to be honest, it will probably ask you to create an account if you don't have one. Now, if you do run into any problems creating an account on the app, what I would say to do is go online, make yourself an account there, so when you get to this part, it will just simply be asking you to log into your account. Now, I have an account and I am logged in. I am ready to go, so I can just activate it. And what it's going to do is going to connect to the DJI server where your DJI account is. The reason you have a DJI account is so you can sync all your flight records, etc. To the internet. So if you're going from device to device, you won't have any problems with having to download your flight records or anything. Or for example, if you ever have an issue and DJI want to investigate it, that's exactly what they'll ask for. Now, at this part, now the model is now active, but you've got two options here. You've got a flight simulator, so if you are a raw beginner, I strongly recommend you have a look at the flight simulator, or you can look at the video tutorials. What we'll do is we'll have a look at the flight simulator. Now, what this is going to do is going to sort of create a sort of virtual phantom. So it works as in it does if you were flying the real thing. So you'll arm your motors in the same way. So basically just pull the sticks together to arm your motors. I don't know if you can see that because it's quite small, but the motors are now running, and then you can take off. I mean, literally simply as a sort of get you going tool, give you a bit of an idea of what all the various control functions do. It's actually not a bad thing, actually. Good way to get started. You can see all the telemetry, etc. Everything's all working as it would be if you were actually flying it. So if you are not experienced at flying, this is going to be a not bad thing for you just to get the hang of. Just so you know, that goes that way, and it's not going to cost you anything to crash. And now we're actually ready to go into the actual craft itself. Now there is a tutorial, so again, if you are new to drones, etc., it's worth starting the tutorial, because what it'll do is it'll explain all sort of things about weather, where you should be flying, etc. So do not just bypass that and just think, well, that's just for the numpties, I know what I'm doing. No, if you haven't been flying drones, these are different from any other kind of radio control models, and they have completely different rules. For example, in the UK, our rules consist of you should never fly higher than 120 meters, because that's where real aircraft go. You should always be within line of sight of the aircraft, which is estimated at 500 meters, so you should never fly further than 500 meters. Although the craft is more than capable of going miles away, in the UK, don't fly further than 500 meters. And of course, avoid obstacles. So again, in the UK, CAA guidelines are you should never be within 50 meters of persons or buildings that are not under your control, or not within 150 meters of congested areas. So that's areas that are predominantly used for either recreation, commercial use, or residential use. So if you're on the edge of a town, you should be at least 150 meters away from the edge of that town. And then of course, watch out for things like, for example, avoid power lines, things that can give off electromagnetic interference. So mobile phone transmitters is a classic, power lines, substations, things like that. Or you could simply be standing on an area of concrete sort of or tarmac, and there's like reinforced rods underneath you. All these things can interfere with the craft and can cause all sorts of problems. So it's worth basically going through here. It will tell you everything about the app. For example, here it's telling you how many satellites is good. And other thing to watch out for is, weirdly enough, electromagnetic interference from solar storms, believe it or not, can interfere with GPS. Check the batteries in the controller, obviously always having a fully charged controller. And that's the same with the craft. Never take off unless you have a fully charged battery, always. So if you've maybe flown the day before, it's down to 60%, recharge the battery. Do not go out on a partly charged battery because you can get sudden power drops. It's especially relevant in cold conditions. Set the return to home altitude. So for example, if you fly and there's maybe some big mature trees all around you, you're going to have to set your return to home height higher. Otherwise what will happen is it could fail safe and then possibly fly into something. So for example, the altitude just now is 30 meters, which is pretty good. So it's just asking you to confirm that. Adjust the antennas. So for example, when you go to fly for the first time, the best position for the antennas is like this. So the two antennas are up and facing towards the craft. Don't have them like that, because if they're pointing at the craft, that's actually where the weetest signal is, because the beam actually comes out the sides of the antenna. So for example, if you were flying directly above your head, you would have them down, but as you most likely not being flying away from yourself, you'll have them on the side beaming towards the aircraft. So once you've got your antennas all ready, as you can see a wee graphical interface showing you how it's done, you're pretty much ready to start flying. So we can enter the camera mode. You see that's it now booting on, and you can now see that we're pretty much ready to fly. Now, one of the new features of the Phantom 4 is it does have the crash avoidance system at the front of the craft. Now, the way I've got this set up, as you can see, the craft is pointing at the wall, it's pointing at the boxes, etc., and that's within the sort of danger takeoff area, so it's actually telling us that we cannot fly. Now, if I move that round, you might be able to be away from that. Okay, now before we fly, there's a couple of actually quite important things we need to do first, and the first one is a compass calibration. So if we just tap on the thing at the top here, you'll always have this overall status here. So if you have any like compass errors, etc., this is where they're going to appear. But as a sort of rule of thumb, brand new model, I always recommend doing a compass calibration, and it's quite simple. Now I'm going to have to do it inside, but we don't do it inside. You must do it outside, away from anything that could cause any kind of interference. But I'll redo this when I do go outside, but I'll just show it in here. So first thing you need to do, click on the calibrate button, and then we click on OK, and then it'll give you a wee graphic. So the first thing you need to do is you need to rotate the craft around on the spot, and you see that going around there on the video. And then when it comes back to the 360, see it changes nose down, so I'm going to stick it on its nose, and then I'm going to take it for a 360, and then again when we come back to the start, it will complete like that. So that's the first one, and I'll be honest with you, that'll be pretty much okay. That will be pretty much you to go. But another one that's worth doing, especially after you've done a firmware update, is it's worth doing an IMU calibration. So we've just gone to the wrong one. So we go into the main menu here, and we go down to advanced settings. Yep, here we go. Sorry, this menu is slightly different from the Phantom 3. And we go into sensors, and you have basically your IMU data here. Now again, if there were any problems, these bars would be lighting up slightly differently. So you would have things like red there, where it's giving you the little legend at the bottom there. But it's actually worth, as I say, giving it a calibration. This is good after a firmware update. And you just click on Calibrate IMU, Start Calibration. Now, massively important, the craft is on a flat level surface, and you do not move it while that's calibrating. Now it can take about sort of 20 minutes to calibrate, so I'm just going to cut the video here just so that you're not sitting watching a video for 20 minutes. Okay, you can now see that we've got success on both IMUs. Now, one of the features of the new Phantom 4 over the Phantom 3 is a lot of the important sensors like the compass and the IMU, they've actually doubled up, so it's got two to make it more reliable. So you've got obviously one for both. And then that's it. So once that's calibrated, you're now pretty much ready to go. Now you'll probably notice there where it's saying cannot take off. This is actually due to there's something in front of the craft. So if there's something very close to the front of it, it will think that, you know, that there's an obstacle there, so it's not going to allow you to take off. Okay, so I'm going to do a separate video on the app itself, so I'm just going to cover some very basic ones here for you now. So the basic stuff you've got here is you've got basic camera controls, for example, down the side here. Across the top, this is like your telemetry, so you've got battery level here. You've got, this is the quality of the video feed and the quality of the control feed. Down here, you've actually got your map. So that'll tell you where you are. It's also good for example, if you want to fly within a boundary, you can obviously map it this way. Now where we are is actually a bit of waste ground because our unit had not actually been built there. So you can swap them about, whether you make that big and that small. And then down here you've got your things like the actual flight telemetry. So it's telling you things like how high you are off the ground, your vertical velocity, your horizontal velocity, and then finally in here you've got a little map, a little radar down in the bottom corner there. So if your craft is away out, you can actually see what way you can turn it to bring it back home again. So just some good features there. And of course returning into like various menus, etc. Again, I'm going to go over this in a separate one rather than tagging it onto this video. And of course you can exit this whole app here as well by hitting that, and that will allow you to go back into things like flight records, etc. That's what I was explaining to you earlier about having your DJI account. It's so all your flight records can actually get stored in there. And we'll just go back into the camera view, and there we go. So that's it for the app. I'm now just going to show you some of the controls. Okay, so onto the actual controls of the craft. So the first one you know about, how to turn the craft off and on. The other one next to it, that is the home button. So now I always recommend don't use things, automated features, but for the sake of using them. So things like the auto land, auto takeoff, etc. Yes, they're nice little gadgety things, but while the craft is its own control, you're not actually controlling it. And if things go wrong at that point, you might not be able to react quick enough to regain control. So things like home, only use that for things like emergencies where you've lost, well, you've become disorientated or midway lost sight of it. You can click on that and the craft will come home. It can also be activated from the tablet as well. So you've got, that's those two controls. Now your main flying controls, it's kind of like a real plane. So for example, your throttle, so that makes the craft go up, that will be hovering, bring the craft down, and then back to hovering. And then that is your yaw, so that will actually make the craft turn left and right. Now you probably notice that the camera is actually moving left and right ever so slightly. All that is it's perfectly normal. All it is it's anticipating the move of the craft. And then this is your banking control, so that will bank the model to the left, and then bank right, and then of course pitching back the way, pitching forward the way. So that's kind of, so your first controls that you will be using when you first fly your Phantom is obviously getting up into the hover, then let go of that one, and then it's kind of like a radio control car. That'll make the model go forward and backwards, and that will turn it left and right. Don't worry about banking, don't complicate things when you don't have to when you're a beginner. Okay, now on the top of the controller we've got some additional controls alongside your main flight controls. So moving across from here we have the record button. This will start and stop your video. Here, this is your shutter control, so that will take pictures. Here we have a pause button. What that's for is if you're flying and you find that you're all getting in a bit of a mess, you're kind of lost orientation, if you press that button, the craft will just pause itself in flight. So it'll hold its GPS position, it won't ascend, descend, it will just stay there. So it's like your panic button. And then going back across here, this is your flight mode switch. So we have three settings. You've got the P setting, so that's where you should really be. That's for GPS position hold, so the craft will maintain its position, it will contain its height, its level, etc. Then going one down, we have the S switch, so that's for sport. Now what that does is it retains things like the GPS position lock, etc., but the craft is a lot faster in that mode. So going from where normally you could do about 30 miles an hour flat out, that will do about 45. So if you really want to motor yourself either upwind, or you're working your way back up from downwind, or you just want to have some fun, you can put it into that position there. And then the last one, that's more of a creative one, that's ATI mode. Now what that does, it will maintain its height and maintain itself being level, but you'll no longer have the GPS hold on it, so it means the craft would drift with the wind. However, creative videographers like this feature because it means that when you take your fingers off your sticks when you're, say, doing a panning shot, the craft won't immediately look like it's just dropped its anchor and stopped. So now, to utilize any of these other two modes, you do have to actually activate it in the app, which I will show you on another video. It is an advanced feature, so don't be activating it until you get it. In fact, when you actually get your craft, there's a little sticky here that's actually stuck over the top. Then moving down, we've got the gimbal tilt control, so you can tilt your gimbal up and down. It's proportional, so a small movement would make the gimbal move slowly. And then finally, buzzing across to the other side, this is just like a menu select button. It can click in as well as being able to go. So you could basically click into your photo menu and scroll through either way. And as I covered earlier on, you've also got two customizable buttons here. You can customize a huge amount of stuff with those, depending where you want to pop up battery information and all sorts of stuff. So you've got those there as well of course your connections here. So you've got your USB connection to your device. So one thing you definitely have to do is you have to put props on your model before you fly. Now these use a quick release prop system. Now not all the props are the same. You actually have two types, and they're indicated by these little rings. You'll notice one has a black ring, one has a silver ring, and basically the way it works is the prop adapter that has no markings on it is silver, and then the ones that have the little black dots here take the black prop. It's a simple fit. As you see, you've got little facets on the inside. You just push that on. What I tend to do is grip the motor with my fingers and then just push the prop down, and you'll see it squeeze down, and then it's just a case of turning the motor and then letting go. Give it a wee wiggle, make sure it's on properly, and that is the prop locked. But remember, obviously only ever put your props on when you're just about to fly. So I hope you found this video helpful in getting yourself going on your new Phantom 4. I'll be doing a range of videos that will go into the more specific features, especially of the app, as time goes on. And just remember, when you're flying your new Phantom 4, fly safely. Remember all the sort of restrictions that I mentioned in the video further about flying in proximity to people and how far and high to fly away from yourself. I'm Rick from Marinva Models, a DJI dealer from the UK and RC specialist for over 40 years. Thank you very much.